Good afternoon and welcome to the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum. I'm your host, Jennifer Levasseur, the museum's curator for the Space Shuttle International Space Station and this exhibit, Moving Beyond Earth. Our program today offers a unique opportunity to bring together the subjects of two Smithsonian museums in one place, highlighting our shared interest in inspiring the next generation. On behalf of the National Air and Space Museum, we want to thank our colleagues next door at the National Museum of the American Indian for partnering us to bring you an engaging discussion of exploration. We're pleased to have with us today two inspiring individuals, astronaut John Herrington and pilot Ariel Tweto. They both appear in a new IMAX film called Into America's Wild that opens here on February 14th. The producers of the film, Brand USA and McGillivray Freeman, are also here today, and we want to thank them for this beautiful film and making John and Ariel available for this stimulating conversation. Mandy Van Heuvelen, the cultural interpreter coordinator at the National Museum of the American Indian, is here to moderate the program today. So please join me in welcoming the three of them to the stage.
Where am I?
You're right there. I'm right here. Hi, Mandy.
Hello.
Howdy, howdy.
All right. So before we get started, I just wanted to start with this statement that we gratefully acknowledge the Native peoples on whose ancestral lands we gather, as well as the diverse and vibrant Native communities who make their home here today. And I just also want to say that I am really happy and honored to be sitting with you on this stage. As a Native person, it's such a great honor to be able to speak with two amazing and inspiring and very accomplished individuals, both professionally in your careers, but also to have this discussion about the film that you made, Into America's Wild.
Thanks, Mandy.
Thank you.
No, our pleasure. My pleasure. Your pleasure.
My pleasure.
Yay.
So I have some questions that I'll ask you, and hopefully we'll be able to learn a little bit more about your experience together. But to start with, I wanted to ask, what was the spark that led each of you down your own adventurous careers as an astronaut and a pilot?
Start?
Sure. I'll start. Okay, I'll go first. So I would say I come from a long line of pilots. So my grandpa was one of the first Native American pilots to start his own airline in Alaska, and they have 9 kids, and my mom and all her siblings except one were pilots. And then my dad moved to Alaska and he became a pilot, and both my sisters are a pilot, and so I was a straggler, and I was like, oh, everyone else are pilots, I should do this too. But then I grew up flying from the time I was 0 with my mom and dad in their plane, and I just fell in love with being in the sky and just being able to have that bird's eye view and looking around and seeing everything. And then, and then I just got the bug, and then I started flying, and then we had a show on Discovery Channel, and I got to get my license during that show. And just being in the air up by myself is just, you can't describe it. There's nothing like just having like your life in your hands, but at the same time being able to see everything. And I just love it. Flying's fun. So that's how I got the bug.
Well, my dad was a pilot, is also an instructor pilot. So I remember I used to fly, I lived in Colorado. I'm from Oklahoma. And so we moved to Colorado when I was really young, and my dad got his pilot's license and became an instructor pilot. And we had this, we'd rent a small Cherokee, Piper Cherokee, and we'd fly it back to Oklahoma. And so early on, my brother and I would sit in the back and we'd fly to Oklahoma. And then later on, my dad bought a little Cessna 150. And we used to fly, and he'd say, here, fly. And I'd fly, and he'd lean over me and take pictures out the window. And then I didn't get a pilot's license until I was in the Navy. And I didn't join the Navy until 1983 because I met a gentleman. I tutored a guy in calculus when I was a senior in college who was a Dauntless dive bomber pilot in World War II. And I taught him calculus, he taught me about the Navy. So I joined the Navy, and I got my pilot's license in the Navy. Yep.
Wow, so it sounds like both of you were kind of influenced by your family, sort of that tradition that each of you had.
Yeah.
Very much so.
That's great. And how have your careers shaped your connection to the land?
Wow. One of the neat things about flying in space is you have this very macro view the world. If you can imagine the Earth is a 16-inch diameter beach ball, the space shuttle and space station is about a finger width above it. And you're going around the Earth at 17,500 miles an hour. And so for 90 minutes, you come back and you visit back to where you are. Like this is over New Zealand. This is on our arrival to the space station. And you look down, you realize your family's down there, the place you've been as a kid, the place you've hiked and ridden your bicycle, you can't see them. And so you feel really, really small. And one of the things I think that flying in space has done for me is give me a real incredible appreciation for what we have here. Because if we weren't here, we wouldn't be able to go out there. And then being able to be in the movie and share that experience with others, and this idea of nature and the world around us has been a fabulous experience for both of us, I think.
Yeah. And for me, for like being a pilot in Alaska, you get to fly around this amazing place where you could go for an hour and not see a road or not see another human being. But it's also an opportunity to scout places where you want to go and play. So so me and my sisters, you could be flying and you could be like, ooh, let's go hike that glacier, let's go hike that ridgeline, or let's go mountain biking over here, and you could, so it's sort of a cheating, a way to like go find different places that you want to explore and discover. And that's one of my favorite things about being able to fly. And then and then the whole TV aspect, like I went to college for TV and film, and for me, I just love adventure and travel shows. And so this whole thing has been just like a dream come true. And so for a little girl who grew up in a village of 600 people, and then not seeing anyone like that looks like me on TV, like this, it was always a dream of mine to be like up there, so little girls and just little kids could be like, whoa, she looks like me, and she's doing that? Like, I want to do that. And so it's just something I'm passionate about, is just inspiring kids to like have really big dreams and then go and set goals, and then you'll accomplish them. And so it's just, yeah.
I watched her on TV too. It's fun. I watched that show. So.
Before you met?
Yeah, before we met, yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, definitely. You both have really unique perspectives on how you've been able to connect with nature through your careers. Certainly ones a lot of us don't have the opportunity to do. And this next question is for John, because at the National Museum of the American Indian, we do have some objects, some cultural objects that you brought with you into space, a Hopi seed pot and a feather. And I was wondering if you could just touch on the significance of those objects that you took with you and their importance on your journey to space.
There's a friend of mine, his name's Al Koyuema. He's a Hopi, traditional Hopi potter. His mother and grandmother are both traditional Hopi potters. They actually they do a coil method in making pots. And so Al Q, as we call him, holds a patent on the inertial navigation system for the X-15, which is hanging down here, I believe. And so an incredible talented engineer, and he started with the American Indian Science and Engineering Society, and it's a group that's been around to motivate and to give Native kids the opportunity to be scientists or engineers and be professionals. And so I first met Al back in 1997 when I gave a speech. As my first speech as an astronaut was to a large conference in Houston, Texas, to the American Indian Science and Engineering Society. So Al flew the Hopi pot with cornmeal in it, and I also flew a flute and a feather, and I don't know if we have a photo of those or not. The flute was made by a Cherokee friend who was an engineer at the Kennedy Space Center, and he uses math to determine where each of the holes goes based on the length and diameter of this reed flute, black lacquer flute. And I flew a eagle feather, was given to me by a gentleman named Phil Lane Sr., who was an elder with the American Indian Science Engineering Society. And the first time he met me, he gave me an eagle feather. It was about this big. And he said, you haven't flown yet, so here's your little eagle feather, because you're a little eagle. And then when I did fly, he gave me this beautiful eagle feather that was beaded Mother Earth and Father Sky and all the people of the world. And there was only two items, I wish we had a photo of it, the only two items that I was actually able to take out during my mission and photograph. Everything else was buried somewhere in the bowels of the space shuttle. But I took them out, and it meant a lot to me. And my understanding that one of Phil's grandfathers was a survivor of the Battle of Little Bighorn. So, and Phil was married to a Chickasaw woman, the tribe I come from, Bo Lane. And unfortunately, they both passed away, but I'm still in touch with their families. Yeah, neat.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think from what you've just shared, and Ariel, you're also your inspiration, you really speak to a lot of what we talk about at the museum is bringing voices and those perspectives of different Native people and their achievements to the forefront. And so that's why it's such an honor for me to be here with you both today as well.
I think if I could add to that, if you don't mind, is that the ASIS, the American Indian Science and Engineering Society, a lot of people have a stereotypical view of what a Native American is. And it's usually Plains Indian with a war bonnet, riding on a horse, things like that. But in reality, we're engineers, we're scientists, we're doctors, we're lawyers. We appreciate and we value our heritage. Our ancestors provided us the opportunity to walk the earth. And so to be able to recognize that it's not just that we're proud of who we are, but proud of what we do. And I think the museum does a fabulous job of sharing that with visitors.
Well, thank you. So now I kind of want to switch gears and talk a little bit more about your experience making the film Into America's Wild. This film explores how connecting with nature can spark peak experiences and how those experiences have changed lives. So I was wondering, what was the most transformational experience that you each had while making the film?
Ooh.
You want to go first? Okay, I'll go. One of the neatest things we had a chance to, I've always heard of Mesa Verde, but I'd never been to Mesa Verde before. And we had the opportunity to actually go down and walk through the ruins. And what I like to, I earned my PhD in education, and one of the things that I worked with was a group of Native students on the Duck Valley Reservation in southern Idaho. And one of the questions I asked, do you have any representations of Native Americans as natural scientists or engineers in your curriculum? And the answer is no. But going to Mesa Verde and be able to walk through and see what ancestors had done thousands of years ago, and it's still standing today. That we were scientists, we were engineers, we were astronomers, we were people that actually knew how to do things and survive in an environment. And to me, being able to walk amongst that was just an incredibly heartwarming experience of what our ancestors are capable of doing.
My answer isn't as deep as John's. I think I fell in love with Hood River because I got to learn a new activity and a new sport, and that was kiteboarding. And I grew up in a village where it unically, and it means where the east wind blows, never blows from the east, it always blows from the west right off the ocean. And sometimes it's blowing 50, 60 knots, but I just grew up not liking the wind, and we would just try to avoid it at all costs. So going to Hood River and finding a sport where wind is essential and it's the only opportunity to fly these kites are from the wind made me so grateful and happy now for the wind. And now I'm like, I want to go back to unically and kiteboard. But it made me realize just to change my mentality. Like when I don't like something, like there's always going to be something positive to find. And now I'm just like, I love wind. Like it's like my new favorite element. But so that was really cool, and I just loved it there because you have the Columbia River Gorge, and then you have like Mount Hood, and there's just so much there's opportunities to be outside and just to play in the dirt and jump in the water and smell the trees, and I just fell in love with it there.
Drink the water.
And drink the water from the river at the.
And there's great footage of her learning how to kiteboard on Columbia River and IMAX. It's gonna be fun to see.
Yeah, it's gonna be hilarious.
Yes.
Have you tried it again since?
I haven't, but I'm going back for sure. I'm looking for like a little plot of land so I could build a little cabin on there or something. But I just love it there. And there's so much fruit and vegetables that could grow everywhere there, and I could like ferment vegetables, and I'll ramble, but I just loved it there. It was nice. But then we got to go to Albuquerque for the hot air balloon. Yeah, that was amazing. Like just being up in the sky, it was so quiet. It was like that is what blew my mind. It was just you get up there. Well, first of all, we're all giggling, and we had 2 little girls with us, and they were terrified. And then, so that went on for a while. But once you got up there and you just see how peaceful it is, it's amazing.
Until you land. We lifted off, and it was so windy that after we lifted off, they stopped all the other launches because they knew we'd all have to come back down. And so you took your iPhone out, and we had an IMAX camera on the side of the gondola. And the guy that was the balloon pilot was from Oklahoma. Jinx, Oklahoma, and we're coming along, there's this little barbed wire, and we just scraped the top of the barbed wire with the bottom of the gondola, and we're coming down sideways. You're filming the whole thing.
Yeah.
We go boom, laughing, boom, and we hit a concrete culvert, boom, 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 boom. And we're laughing and giggling, and the little girl was just having a hilarious time. And the next day, it was so quiet and so calm. We touched down in a cul-de-sac. He goes, "Arr." She goes, "That's not very exciting."
I have
was
to say,
fabulous.
I can relate to that kind of semi-crash landing in a hot air balloon. When I'm from South Dakota, and when my grandmother turned 80, that's what she wanted
Oh,
to
cool.
do.
Oh, that's so
was
cool.
go in a hot air balloon, and so we did that, and we did not have the smoothest landing either.
Did your grandma like it?
She did, yes.
That's so cool.
The whole
fun.
family got to go, but it was there. It's windy as well, so you kind of have to look out for that. The most interesting part about it was we were out on the Great Plains, and it scared the cattle. They were just running as far as they could away from the hot air balloon.
Sure.
So on this journey you had while making the film, you visited some amazing places, and you've kind of already spoken to some of your favorite parts of that. What would you say was the most awe-inspiring place that you went to?
I'd say the Hoodoos.
Hoodoos, probably, yeah. There's a place outside of southeast of Farmington, New Mexico, in Navajo land in New Mexico, and it's called a Shishlapa. And these hoodoos right here you see, we walked out there early morning, and they had a shot of us walking out in the sunrise, and it was really alien landscape.
Yeah.
And I'd never been there before, and it was on this long dirt road, and it had rained, and it was muddy, and everybody's humping all the material, all the cameras and stuff out there. But to be in this place that I'd never heard of, in a place where not many people go, was just an incredible experience.
Yeah, I didn't know they existed. And then you see these formations that you're like, there's no way Mother Nature built this herself. Like someone had to be out there with like a shovel or like a hammer making it, but then you just learn it's from the water and erosion and everything, and your mind is seriously blown. You're like, there's some amazing, beautiful things out there if you go and search for it, and if you just step outside and like take a stroll. But it was pretty mind-blowing seeing those hoodoos.
Yeah, they looked amazing, just even watching it on film, definitely. So as you were working together and kind of going through these different locations, what was the biggest challenge that you faced while making this?
This guy. No, just joking.
You're so sweet. I love it. Oh no, I think was to watch the support and the folks bringing all the gear, the grips, people that run the cameras, and having to hike into these places and set up the camera. Like for example, we were on the Durango to Silverton Railroad, and to be able to capture this, plus we had an octocopter with an IMAX camera on it. And they got some absolutely stunning photography in this. And when you see it on the big screen, it will absolutely blow you away. You feel like you're a part of it. Anything, but to see all the work that goes behind making a movie like this is you don't really get to appreciate it until you're actually doing it, and seeing the time and effort. The people that really don't get in front of the camera, if they weren't behind the camera, you wouldn't have this type of thing. It's like on the space shuttle. You know, we're lucky as astronauts to get to fly, but it's the thousands and thousands of people that make it possible that you don't get to see them, but if they didn't do their job, you wouldn't get to do yours.
Yeah, like the crew really becomes your family for like the last year, and that was the biggest gift from this show is just being like, we gained a whole new family. John and then the McGilverys and the whole crew though, every night you're eating dinner together, you wake up in the morning and have coffee together, you're struggling, and sometimes you're waking up at 3 in the morning and
Rolls up at 6.
Yeah, and you're just
Boom,
like,
you're out
and
the
you're so
door.
tired, but you get this energy from your whole, your crew, and those, our camera guys are carrying these huge cameras, and then, one day I forgot my shoes, and so we had a girl on our crew, gave me her brand new white shoes, and it was the muddiest day around. And so I'm just like, geez, but then you just have everyone's support, and you just fall in love with everybody. So it was a great experience. And
I was told to be like working with a family, and I said, that could be good and bad. Fabulous family. You guys, McGilverys, you guys are great.
oh, are they here?
Yeah.
Oh, there's Sean.
They're right there.
There they are.
Hey.
Well, thanks for bringing that element into this conversation, because I think it's something that we don't think about when we're sitting back as the viewers of all the work that goes in and all the people that are involved to make this kind of production possible. So it's good to hear that. So I know that for many people, and sometimes myself included, going out and trying something new or going to a new place can be intimidating or fearful, or it could cause anxiety. And so I was wondering, what advice do you have for people who are wanting to go try new things but are a little apprehensive about it?
I think you have to just get out and do it, and it might be scary, but I think the regret that you'll have if you didn't try it would hurt a lot more than if you fall or do something else. I think just not trying would hurt more in the end. And yeah, it might be scary to just get out there and try a new sport or activity, or to run for the first time, or hike or mountain bike or climb like that. But the first step is just like putting on your shoes and getting out there, and then you realize how fun. And then, like, failure, there's that saying, like, you're not trying hard enough if you're not failing. Isn't that the saying? Something like that. But it's so true. Like, you have to push yourself, because that's how you'll become a stronger person, and you'll build character, and you'll have so many more opportunities if you just go out and try new things. Because if you're just sitting at home because of fear, you're not going to meet potential new best friends. You're not going to see beautiful sunrises. You're not going to get to see cool, like, moose walking across the tundra. Like, you have to push yourself to have, like, the most amazing life possible. And so, yeah, it might be scary, but just, like, tough it up for a little bit and get out there. And then if you're worried about what other people are thinking of you, guarantee that they're probably thinking the same thing. Like, we're also scared about what other people are thinking, but in the end, I think most of us are so caught in our own heads. So just like, take a deep breath and then just take a leap to the moon.
Stream of consciousness is good. I think the stuff that you do that's difficult, you may not do it the first time. The second time you may do it, but the feeling of satisfaction you get when you actually do it is a fabulous feeling. And I'll relate that back to rock climbing, is that, it's hard, but if you achieve it and you get to the top, there's this incredible feeling of satisfaction that comes from having accomplished something difficult. Everything in my career where I've been flying airplanes, it can be incredibly difficult. The weather can be bad, but boy, you touch down and you roll. Matter of fact, landing in Alaska after a mission off the Soviet Union back in the 80s, come back in this massive snowstorm and a blizzard, and you land on this runway, and everybody comes up and slaps you on the back and says, hey, good job, Mr. Herrington. They don't realize your feet are shaking on the rudder pedals, but it encourages you to do that next thing that's hard. So going out and climbing out in Wilson Arch out here, had some professional climbers out there, and some kids were learning as well, and had a fabulous time feeling. I grew up doing that.
Yeah, my first solo flight, I didn't know that white knuckling was literal until I landed. And then I looked at my hands. I couldn't feel, like, my arms. I was so scared. It was. I think I closed my eyes while I was landing. Probably not the smartest thing to do, but there was footage of it, and I was like, how did I do that? But then you're like, I just did that. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing what we could accomplish if we just challenge ourselves and just try.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you both have done some really extraordinary things that I imagine take a lot of courage to do for the first time. So thank you for sharing some of what you're thinking about when those challenges come up. I know for myself, one goal I wanted to set was to run a marathon, and I didn't think that I could do it. My goal was just to run without stopping, and I did the DC Marine Corps Marathon.
Oh, cool.
And it was my first and last. I'm probably not going to do any more.
Right.
Was that this year?
No, it was about 4 years ago.
Well, good for you.
So yeah, I was inspired when you said in the film that you run every day, and there's a segment about an ultra marathon.
Sean Martin,
yeah.
photo right here. This is in Canyon de Chelly, and Sean Martin's an ultra marathoner, Navajo, and he is a coach, a track coach as well, but he has this incredible running experience. You did this,
Yeah.
you ran a race in Canyon de Chelly, and there were horses down there.
Wild horses,
Yeah.
and you're running in mud up to here, but yeah, he's just tough people. But yeah, his story is really inspiring. I hope you guys get to watch the film, because it tells a little bit more about him, and he's just so inspiring, and just super passionate and just proud of where he's from and like where he's come from. So it's neat.
Yeah, and it was great to see another Native person featured in the film, aside from yourselves. And I just kind of wanted to ask you a question about, the film is about everyone's connection, or a connection that they could have with the land and nature. And I was wondering if making the film provided you with any opportunities yourselves to connect with your own indigenous cultures.
Yeah, we went to Cahokia, Illinois, if you've ever been out there. It was a large earthen mounds that are, I think Monk's Mound is about 10 stories tall. My tribe descended from the mound builders in the southeastern United States, found around Moundville, Alabama. And so to be able to go back to where my ancestors actually built these incredible structures by hand of dirt that are very symmetric, they're aligned with the cardinal directions. There's actually a wooden Stonehenge there that they've recreated. That we were incredible astronomers and engineers and scientists, and be able to walk those areas was a fabulous experience for me. So yeah, that brought me right back to what my ancestors had been from.
And sort of related, but I got to go home to our village and film with my parents and my grandma. And my grandma is 90, she's 91, and we went out berry pick. Actually, we didn't go out, we tracked her because my grandma didn't really like the cameras. But then we ended up following her, and then me and my mom started berry picking with her, and we had so much fun. But being able to have that footage with me, my mom, and my grandma was so cool, because a couple months after, my grandma fell down and broke her hip. And so it was the last time all of us actually got to be out in the tundra picking berries, laughing, swatting bugs. But it was just just so cool though that we have this little bit of footage with her out, and she raised 9 kids by herself, and just all of them are super successful, and everyone loves being outside. But she, up until 91, was chopping wood every day. She's just the toughest person, but she's so connected to the land, and she's always just hunting and fishing, gathering greens and stuff. And so being able to go back home and do this project with her was really meaningful.
Cool.
Yeah, I think you both spoke to something that's so important in being able to connect with our elders, the ones who are still with us, but even our ancestors, and learning from all of the knowledge that they have and what continues to be passed down.
Sure.
So it's great that you got to do that as a part of the filming as well. So you both serve as role models for Indigenous youth. And what would you say to a young person who wants to pursue the same or a similar career today?
If you don't do it, you won't do it. You gotta get out there, and if you recognize that somebody is that person's like me. I had a difficult time in college. I didn't study very hard. I got kicked out of school as a freshman. But I met people that encouraged me to do something in my life, and I learned math and practice out in the mountains. And so, if you don't think you can accomplish it, realize there's somebody out there that's had challenges and difficulties just like other folks do. If you don't do it, you won't do it. I mean, if you don't apply to be an astronaut, you won't become an astronaut.
Yeah.
And so if there's something you want to do, find something you're passionate about and talk to somebody that's doing it, and get a flavor for whether or not you'd really like it. Don't just go off on some tangent and say, I want to go do that, without really understanding what that is. Talk to somebody that's doing it, and you'd be surprised where you end up.
Yeah. Just sort of, figure out what makes you happy and what gets you excited to wake up in the morning, or what you're curious about. And then it's so important, I think, for everybody to set goals for yourself all the time. It's set these long-term goals. Mine used to be, they change all the time. When I was younger, it was to be the first girl in the NBA. That didn't happen. And so I realized I was not growing. And so then I was like, oh, maybe I'll be a vet. And then I had a bad experience with an animal. I was like, it's too hard. And then I fell in love with TV and film, and then just constantly from then on, I would set these little goals, finish high school and then finish my homework. You have to constantly try to better yourself, and you do that by setting goals and then holding yourself accountable, and then surrounding yourself with people that are going to support you. Like, it's so important to pick the right friends, and so make sure your friends are supporting you, they're healthy and they're helping you and they laugh at you, and that you guys could grow together. But it's so important to surround yourself with good people and with people that will push you and that want you to do well and that you want them to do well too, your team. And so I think just like goal setting is so big, and then figuring out what makes you excited to get up in the morning.
That's great. I mean, I think you speak to a lot of things that can make anybody successful in their lives, and finding what that passion is for you and finding a support system that will help get you there.
Sure.
And those are all really important things for young people and even for us as adults to keep going. The Ariel, you started a nonprofit called Popping Bubbles, and I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about that work and its importance to you and your community.
Okay, thank you. So I started Popping Bubbles in 2014. I'll just do a really short version, but I went to school with 12 kids in my class, and 7 died by suicide. And so after a good friend did it, I made a pact with myself that I was going to figure out a way to help stop suicide. And for me, in order to prevent suicide, you have to show people that life is worth living, and that life is hard, but you have to learn these skills, like coping skills, and just realize like in order to prevent suicide, you have to figure out what makes you happy. And for me, like, I think all of us, we all live in our own little bubble. We're scared to try new things or to talk to people that look or talk different from us or believe in different religions, or to travel or just to try new things. And we'd be so much happier if we popped each other's bubbles. And so that's where the name came out. But I just think it's so important to instill in kids that, man, sometimes life is super hard. But then when it's really hard, realize that it's going to get better. And then when it's really great, realize it might go down again. And life is a roller coaster. It's up and down. You're going to cry, and you're going to get angry, and you're going to be super excited, and then you're going to be sad again. So it's up and down. You just have to realize that. You want it up more than down, but you can do that if you work at it. And if you, like he keeps saying, surround yourself with positive people, and if you just set goals, and if you just just pop your bubbles. But that's how the name came out, and I just really want kids in these, just all over, at all people, that life is so short, and to make it as good as best as possible while we're still breathing.
So as part of that work, you're kind of exposing them to different experiences and helping them find their passion. Would you say that that's?
Yeah, we do a lot of motivational speaking. We just got some scholarships for kids to go to the art camps in California. A big part is building a team, because some kids are not going to relate to me, but some may relate to John, and then some may relate to a teacher, and some may relate to a doctor, some may relate to a plumber. So just exposing kids to all the opportunities out there, because like we're all so different and we have different passions, just to get kids to be like, oh, I didn't even know that existed. I want to do that. And so just keep funneling ideas into their head and just make them excited to just get up.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, giving kids those different opportunities, I would think, would be so impactful in their lives. And I know that for me, growing up on the Great Plains, my dad is a rancher, and so being around horses was something that was, for me, a real learning experience. I was afraid of riding horses when I was young, and to conquer my fears, I started signing up to compete in rodeo queen contests. It's not something I usually tell people, but I'm telling the world now.
That's awesome.
So that was a way for me to like get over that fear, to get comfortable with riding horses. But I know that for a lot of kids, having just the opportunity to have those new experiences, it just, like we've been talking about, it just helps you grow as a person.
What is it called? A rodeo queen?
Rodeo queen
That's
contest.
awesome.
So
we need to chat. I want you to go and chat.
it involves a series of tasks you must complete, and then you're judged on. But learning about like the anatomy of your horse and horsemanship is a part of it.
When my daughter was 13, she said, "Daddy, horses or boys, your choice." She still has the horse. The first boy she ever dated, she married after she graduated from, and she still has a horse. She has another horse and 2 donkeys. So yeah. Yeah.
So that turned out.
Yeah, it turned out good. Yeah.
Would John, I know that you've also done a lot of work with young people and youth, and I was wondering if you would want to speak to some of that work and even how education is an important part
Sure.
of your life today.
And I retired in 2005 from NASA. I went to work for a commercial space company for a couple of years. Long story, real short. Left the company in 2007, hopped on a bike in 2008, rode across the country from Cape Flattery to Cape Canaveral. Along the way, I stopped in a little town called Lewiston, Idaho, and went to the University of Idaho, Moscow, and a gentleman I had met before who had flown a payload on the Columbia with a group of students from the Fort Hall Reservation in Idaho. He said, hey, if you want to get a PhD, come back and talk to me. Well, I didn't live in Idaho. I lived in Oklahoma. The woman that was my host in Lewiston became my wife. I proposed to her at the end of the bike ride at the front of the countdown clock at the Kennedy Space Center. Got married, moved to Idaho, went back to school, earned my PhD in education. I worked with a group of Native students on the Duck Valley Reservation that had been in a NASA summer program. And the idea was, what about that 1-week program did or did not change their interest in math and science? And so they had taken a test before and a test after. I quantified that, looked at who actually had a change in interest, and there were three or four girls in the group that had a change in interest. But I also did a case study, and I asked them what was the motivators in their life, motivators about that program, as well as in life in general, that encouraged them to go to school. And it was aunties, grandmas, sisters. There's a maternal component in their families that was the main driver for their education, was also working with their friends and being in a collaborative environment and working and building stuff and seeing the practical kind of come together with the theoretical. And that's exactly how I've learned my entire career. And so what I would like to do in the second half of my career was to go back and look at this on a larger scale with college students who are Native American who are persisting in their education and quantify those values so you can go to Congress and you can say, hey, this is what works. Here's a collaborative environment, kids working, learning about their ancestors and how their ancestors did things. So that's what I'd like to do in the second half of my career. My wife was a huge supporter of that. She passed away in 2018. But the idea is, encourage us and keep going on and keep doing this type of thing. And so that's what she was about, and that's what I'm supposed to do.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. So I know that kind of doing this whole process of making this film and kind of coming together and meeting each other for the first time, and wondering about did that process change either of you in any way?
I got a new friend.
I know, new friend.
Yeah.
Like crazy uncle.
Yeah.
No, crazy brother,
Yeah.
not uncle.
Right.
We
No.
had so much fun, and it was instant. I think the first time I met him, I was sitting out in where was it, in Portland, or no, in New York. What's the one that's Buffalo? And
Yeah,
I was,
we were in Watkins
yeah.
Glen, I think. We were in Watkins Glen.
No, it was a
filmed
night
up
though at the hotel. I was writing in my journal, and John just comes over, and I didn't know who he was, but he just starts asking me questions, and I'm like, oh, I just want a journal.
Who's this old dude? Yeah. Go away.
Yeah, but then he's like just so curious about people, like genuinely curious about everyone that he meets, and that's what I've learned is like, because sometimes we get so focused in our own little world, but John, it could be anybody, and he'll like have full-on conversations with them about their family, where they're from, what they do, their dogs, like all this stuff. Like we're like it's always, and I'm just like, I need to bring that back, like for me too. Just like you, I don't know, we just get so single-minded, but like I've learned so much from him, and his just questions are amazing, and he's so smart. Like insanely smart, but then also so goofy.
I like her.
No, like when I think of an astronaut, I think like of a really buttoned up person that is just sort of, I don't know, like very, very just, But then you see John and he's like, woo, just like dancing and having fun. And so it's just like, I just love him.
She's sweet. No, it's been a wonderful experience. We've gone to so many different places and watching her do her work, which she's been involved in TV for quite a few years, and learning her history and how she came about making her TV show, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It really has.
So while you were out there, I understand you you had some different people that you met along the way as well, and I was just wondering if you could talk about those individuals and what those experiences were like for you.
Start with Jennifer.
Okay, Jennifer, yeah.
Yeah, Jennifer Farr Davis. She is this beast of a lady that she had the record for hiking the Appalachian Trail, right?
For man or woman?
For man or woman.
Right, yeah.
Like, yeah, go girls. But she, first of all, her legs are like up to here on me, but that doesn't even matter. Like she could be like the smallest person ever and she would still whip my butt. Or just had the heart like of a lion. Is just so friendly and kind and just like generous and so passionate about nature. And now she has a couple kids and takes them out all the time. But she blew my mind. I loved her sense of humor and just everything about her. But yeah, I just loved her work ethic and just how strong and like force of a woman she is.
Yeah, there was MFA we did down to San Antonio, got to go down the Riverwalk. I lived in San Antonio as a kid. I went to high school for a week in San Antonio, and then went back for a year later. And we got a chance to go out, and she's deaf, but she has a nonprofit where she helps raise money to get kids hearing aids. And also
she won Miss Texas?
Miss Texas, Miss San Antonio.
America.
Yeah, so she's a beauty queen.
Yeah.
Kind of like a rodeo queen. And she, she speaks really well, but she's been deaf since she was a young child.
And she doesn't just speak well; she sings incredibly.
Plays a guitar. Yeah,
and
it's really.
Can you imagine though not hearing yourself sing? Like I'm just like.
SMFA set a lake outside of Charleston, South Carolina. That was a hot day.
Yeah, but it just blew my mind because she could play the guitar and sing, and she sounds just amazing, just like a little angel. And she is a little angel, like she's so kind. But so that was really cool to meet her. And then Paul, I met Paul, and he was in the Pando, the aspen groves. What is it, like 47,000 trees are one single organism? And it's like, that's crazy. And so they're just like these crazy yellow aspens, and then the heart of it is Pando.
Yeah.
And so Paul just knows everything that you could possibly imagine and about the aspen groves. So that was cool.
We were on the Finger Lakes in New York with a gentleman who was a Henry David Thoreau expert, not Thoreau, Henry David Thoreau. He made a point of letting me know that. We paddled with another gentleman who was a Penobscot Indian, whose was a great-grandfather, had paddled with Henry David Thoreau on the Penobscot River in Maine years before. And so we were paddling on canoes together on the Finger Lakes. It's a funny story there, but I could tell it that one. But they had the camera on the shore filming us as we were talking, listening to these two talk about their experiences. It's not just the beauty of the place we would go, but the beauty of the people that were there and that had that experience that we got to share.
And then Sean Martin running in Canyon de Chelly, he was amazing. Who are we forgetting?
And then what else we know?
Is that where you saw the wild horses?
Yeah.
Yeah, this was just off of a creek. There'd been a flash flood. It was about this tall in this little creek. And we brought these horses were out there, and we actually filmed this. Greg and Brad on the tripod, and Rob were sitting on a tripod right here in the middle of the creek, and these horses are running at them full blast. And they go, woo, right around them. And it was amazing. And the runner, it's another gentleman running in the back here, and we had a drone over that. It was just stunning.
It was
absolutely
so cool.
Stunning photography, yeah. But yeah, there are wild horses in Canyon de Chelly where Sean Martin was running. We got that on the film as well.
Yeah, and
beautiful stuff.
Yeah, I think that might. And I'm sure there's a couple more characters.
You went at Crater Lake. You guys were jumping off.
Oh yeah, Crater Lake. Oh yeah. Evelyn Chan started this organization called Girl on Rock, and it's a climbing. Basically getting girls from the city into nature, and she was a fountain of knowledge as well, just really smart girl. And where's she from? Megan? Where's Evelyn from? Austin. She lives in Austin. But yeah, so she taught us just a lot about like just how even death in nature is connected, like all the dead trees, like they're actually feeding mushrooms and these other plants and the bugs, and so everything, the cycle of life is pretty cool, but she learned a lot from her about that.
So you have clearly been on this one huge adventure and met all these incredible people and learned from each one of them. And I was just wondering, what did you each learn from each other along the way?
This is getting deep. Here we go. Oh, man, wow.
I know, can I go first?
Okay.
Real quick? Because I touched on it earlier. Just curiosity. Like, he's so curious still, and like mid-age. No, I'm kidding. I can tease him because we're friends. No, it just shows, like, if you're curious about things, then your life is more interesting. And he's so curious just about people, about space, about math, about science. And it's just, I want to be like that. And I used to talk a lot about, like, find your happiness, do that, and that's so hard to teach. But now I'm learning, if you teach kids and people to like be curious and like find out what you're curious about, and then like ask questions, then it just enriches your life so much. And so that, and just he's so genuine, and just so, his heart is like so big, like it's so big. And I don't know, I just wanted to like just be more like him, but it is so big, and you're just like, he has so much to give, and just and he's just great.
Give us money later. Gee whiz. When I was 25, I joined the Navy, and I had this career for 22 years, and it was like kind of cut and dried where I was going, what my career path was going to be, and everything. This young lady, in her late 20s, mid-age. Came up with this idea of a TV show, and has this enthusiasm and motivation for getting in bubbly, and she's this effervescent person that is out there. She's doing a cartoon. She's a voice of a young girl in a cartoon now, the grumpy kid, right?
Yeah, I'm a grumpy kid in this cartoon.
But she has all these neat things that she's come up with, this idea, and telling me how she got involved in this, and the creativity she has at a very early age. My creativity, really that creative, and just kind of going through my career and doing some neat stuff. But she's doing a lot of things at an early age that I wish I'd had that enthusiasm and effervescent personality. I was really shy growing up. I was very, very shy growing up. It wasn't until I got in the Navy that I actually kind of pulled it out of me. Like, you have to do this. This is something you have to do. You got to get in front of the skipper. You got to brief your squadron. You got to talk to the admiral. So you're forced into this position of leadership early on in your career, but she's taken it on her own and gone out and done it without having this, kind of a much more structured environment that she's in. She's done a fabulous job. So it's been a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you. Ooh, can I ask him a question quick?
No math.
What's your what's something that you're scared of that you want to do next?
Well, something I'm scared of I want to do next? Boy. I don't know.
To be continued.
Yeah, everything's fun. I mean, if there's a 1 in 300 chance of dying on that thing on launch, on the space shuttle, roughly, based on a piece in the main engine that come apart and take out the other engines. And people say, well, were you scared to do that? Well, no, not really, because it wasn't going to happen to me. So I think the idea of doing something that's challenging and exciting is trying to find that next thing that is exciting. Because if you're not, you go through your career, you have a successful career. I think I was successful as an astronaut. And then I got out and did something else. Then went back and got my PhD. Went back. There's always something else you can accomplish in your life. So I think the next thing is, what I'm scared of is trying to find that next thing that I'm going to do. And this thing came along at a fabulous point in my life when my wife passed away. I got a phone call about a week later, and this has absolutely fundamentally changed my life, and to be able to do this. So it's whether the next thing kind of rears its head and goes, hey, look at me, come do this, and I'll go do it. That's what you got to do.
That's awesome. You guys have been so great, and I really appreciate just this opportunity to talk with you and listen to you. I hope that you all learned something new as well, but thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So
Yay.
great.
Well, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you all for joining us today. Join me, though, in welcome and in thanking our guests one more time.
Yay, thank you.
Bye. Thank you, guys. And thank all of you for coming in today and joining us.
We're ready. You're so nice. You're so nice.